On April 23, 1973, Henry Kissinger addressed Associated Press editors in New York City. He called the speech, "The Year of Europe." But his real subject was larger. What happens when an alliance survives the danger that created it? For a generation, the United States and Western Europe had been united by war, reconstruction, and fear of the Soviet Union. By 1973, Europe had recovered, America was exhausted by Vietnam, and younger citizens no longer remembered why the Atlantic Alliance had been built. Kissinger saw a hidden danger. Success itself could weaken cooperation. When an emergency ends, people begin treating the institutions that protected them as permanent facts. They remember the costs, but forget the disaster those institutions were designed to prevent. Kissinger asked whether unity created by fear could be renewed through a positive purpose. That is the first lesson. Every successful institution must eventually explain why it still deserves loyalty. Kissinger's own life made the question personal. Born Heinz Alfred Kissinger in Germany in 1923, he fled Nazi persecution with his Jewish family in 1938. He later served in the United States Army, studied at Harvard, and became a scholar of diplomacy before entering Richard Nixon's White House. But he did not believe peace was protected by good intentions alone. His worldview was realist. Nations possess different interests, fears, histories, and power. Diplomacy begins not by pretending those differences disappear, but by arranging them so conflict becomes less useful than cooperation. The speech rejected nostalgia. Kissinger said the new partnership had to build on the past without becoming its prisoner. That phrase contains the second lesson. Respecting history does not mean repeating yesterday's methods. A strategy can create new problems. Stronger allies demand more independence, military power changes responsibility, and economic competition enters relationships once defined by security. Good leaders ask what the mission requires now. Kissinger's strongest achievements reflected that flexibility. He helped open relations between the United States and China, pursued détente and arms control with the Soviet Union, and used shuttle diplomacy after the 1973 Middle East War to negotiate disengagement agreements. He understood that negotiation is not a reward given to friends. It is a tool used when adversaries possess enough power to damage one another, but not enough trust to solve the problem alone. That is the third lesson. Diplomacy is most necessary when moral agreement is absent. But Kissinger's record also exposes the danger inside realism. When leaders focus mainly on balance, leverage, and national interest, individual lives can disappear behind the map. His policies remain deeply controversial because of the bombing of Cambodia, U.S. actions toward Chile, support for governments accused of severe abuses, and decisions during the wars in Vietnam and South Asia. Strategic intelligence does not automatically produce moral judgment. A policy may improve relations between major powers while imposing terrible costs on people with little influence over the negotiation. Order can prevent war, but order without accountability can also protect injustice. The fourth lesson is a warning. Realism must describe power without worshiping it. Kissinger also argued that allies must share responsibility. Partnership fails when every member wants influence but expects someone else to carry the risk, expense, or political cost. This applies beyond international affairs. In a company, family, or community, cooperation weakens when responsibility is vague. Trust grows when obligations are clear, consultation is genuine, and sacrifice is not permanently assigned to the same people. Partnership does not require identical opinions. Kissinger accepted disagreement, but believed it had to occur inside a shared structure strong enough to survive it. The address offers 5 lasting lessons. Institutions must renew their purpose after success. History should guide strategy, not imprison it. Negotiation is not surrender. Shared benefits require shared burdens. And power must remain answerable to human consequences. Kissinger became one of the most influential diplomats of the 20th century because he thought in decades rather than headlines. He studied how nations remember humiliation, calculate danger, and protect status. But his legacy remains divided because intelligence in service of power can stabilize the world, or make suffering easier to justify. That is why the Year of Europe still matters. Its deepest question was never only about Europe. Can people who once united against a common enemy remain united when the enemy is no longer enough? And can leaders preserve order without losing sight of the human beings order is supposed to protect?